Speaker of the House, Kurt Zellers, joins me now to talk about last week's meeting and a little bit more broadly looking into next legislative session. Thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Let's begin with the Legislative Advisory Commission. Last week unanimously granted approval to borrow a line of credit to meet cash flow needs if necessary. Now, if the state does borrow money, what are the long-term effects to taxpayers here in Minnesota?
Well, it's short-term borrowing, so it would be kind of like a line of credit on your home mortgage or your checking account. You know, if you something big, say a car payment, or excuse me, a car breaks down, you need to pay a few $100s this week that you don't have a paycheck for. You have a line of credit. Borrow against that, and then you pay it off the next week. The commissioner said he doesn't think it's necessary, but it's one of those things that rather than having to call a special meeting or have us come in all at once, this is the time we're going to be meeting anyway, so it's good fiscal planning, but something you hope you never have to use, and we hope you don't, but if it is necessary, we want to have it in place for him.
So would taxpayers essentially be unaffected by this?
Yeah, we do have to pay a small, I think it's a transaction fee or a little bit of money just to have that line of credit available to us. If we don't use it, obviously, then we don't have to pay any kind of interest or any kind of user fee on it.
Okay. Also in that meeting, state tax collections, it was explained that they're higher than projected, but growth in the state is lower. State economist Tom Stinson said that it doesn't look good for November's budget forecast. So what are you preparing for?
You know, a lot of what we see around the country. You know, you look at the economy is either flat, or if it has been growing, the growth has slowed down. I think originally we had some 3% predictions here in Minnesota. That's now probably down to 1.8 or 1.5. The good news out there is Minnesota's got a little bit better benefit than some of our other surrounding neighbors, to the south or even to the west, and then we've had some great crops this year. And that may be enough of a shock absorber to help us, maybe not, grow way out of our tough economic times, but maybe prevent it from being worse. So we'll always plan for the worst and hope for the best.
Now, last August, you announced a Reform 2.0 initiative, with 2012 being the session whereby your caucus will push to reform government. So what are some of the higher profile issues you're pursuing?
You know, and they're really, really not exciting things. It's streamlining a government. It's maybe relieving some mandates from local government. It's and a lot of things that most people would think, well, we should have already done that. You know, we're in tough economic times. If the state of Minnesota requires a report on water quality, along with the federal government, along with those local municipality, can't we do it with just one? Or if you're going to have to come to government for a permit to renew a license, why do we ask you to come down to an office? Shouldn't we allow you to do it online, just like you do with all kinds of renewals, whether it's your dog license, whether it's for a credit card, whatever it may be. Renew a lot of things online now, and it may not necessarily be that you need to come to a government office. So things like that are real simple but help out in a lot of standpoint. You look at a lot of local governments, we may not be able to help you with an increase in an LGA or revenue side, but if we can reduce the expenses on the other side of the column, that really helps out at the local level.
If November's budget forecast comes in lower than projected, is it too soon, in your opinion, to look ahead to next session and begin planning either more spending reductions, or would additional revenue then be on the table?
Sure. Well, I don't think it's ever too early to plan for, and the November forecast that will come out is kind of a preview of what will come in February. So I think we'll use that as a good guide as to where our economy is at, a little snapshot in time, and then have a better opinion coming in February. But we absolutely look at it as an opportunity to start that planning process. We don't believe taxing small businesses is a good idea, but we will look at some of those other budget reductions, some things that maybe the governor wasn't on the same page with us this last year. But again, based on the new forecast that comes out, maybe we'll have to look at in the future.
Mr. Speaker, under this legislature, the state had its credit rating reduced to AA+. Some of the reasons given were the budget shifts and other short-term fixes used to balance the budget. So how much, in your opinion, of the onus of this is on the legislature?
Well, I think it's on both us and the governor equally. We can present him a budget, but if he doesn't sign it, it doesn't become law. If we don't present him a budget, there's nothing for him to sign into law. So I think we both own it equally. It's some of the things that, again, from our standpoint, we didn't want to do. We didn't want to borrow. We didn't want to use those tobacco bonds for one time, a stopgap for some of the health care funding. But it was what the governor was willing to sign, what we could also pass through the legislature and get to his desk. So it's something that, unfortunately, we're right there with the U.S. credit rating at AA+. I think it's maybe a sign of our economic times, but also a time then to reassess what is important, what are our priorities, and then what are we going to fund going forward.
And as you do that reassessing, let's talk a little bit about race. Obviously, it's going to be a hot button topic next session. It's already talked about in the Capitol here. So will it get any consideration from your caucus? And what if it was attached to paying schools back some of the money that's owed to them earlier than planned?
Sure, and a lot of that comes whether or not we have the votes. And I've voted for it in the past, but we've got a different legislature now than we had even 2 years ago, or 4 years ago, or 6 years ago when it's passed the legislature. Folks that on a very I would say fiscally conservative viewpoint say we don't need any additional revenue over here. We need to look at the money we're spending and increase or decrease the spending at that level, and then prioritize. And then we have folks that are just absolutely, opposed to any kind of expansion of gambling. So I think it's a little different legislature, and I don't know that we necessarily have the right answer. But paying back the education shift, whether it's using any kind of Versino or gambling money, is going to be a priority for our caucus to start that process of paying that back as quickly as possible.
And when I asked you about new revenue a few minutes ago, you said taxing small businesses isn't the answer, but are there other options available that your caucus would consider that could generate additional revenue?
Sure, and we've looked at that from a standpoint of other states and other countries. You look at Greece has tried to, they tried to raise taxes a couple different times to make up their budget shortfalls, and all they found was the amount that they thought they were going to get didn't actually materialize. So now you've gone to the one place where you thought you were going to get revenue. Now, not only do you not have that option anymore, now you've actually chased some of those folks to other countries or other states. So we think it's a priority to look at our budget, to see what our priorities are, to fund our priorities first. Then, we believe a private sector economy growth will actually help us. The more Minnesotans that go back to work, the more revenue they generate, the more it helps all of us. And private sector economy growth is what we want, not necessarily government growth.
So I don't really hear a yes, but I don't hear a no.
Well, no, we're not going. We don't believe there are any taxes out there at this point in time that will help stimulate our economic growth in the private income. So we're not interested in a tax increase.
Okay, here's another one I have to throw your way. Of course, rumblings of a special session for a Vikings stadium continue to kind of be heard through the hallways here at the Capitol. So where does your caucus stand on that issue? And would you support a special session? And would you support the stadium, you personally?
Sure, and Maury Lanning is our chief author in the House, and I will tell you, Maury, along with Julie Rosen in the Senate, have been working very closely with the Vikings, with the governor's office. It's really hard for us. We've got kind of I'd say maybe a shell of a bill right now. But a number of our folks have said if we're going to raise any kind of tax, there's going to have to be a referendum on that. Now, I voted for the referendum on the Twins bill. It didn't pass, and as a Hennepin County resident, I then voted against the bill. So I think that's where I've consistently been. But I don't ever see one idea as the first, last, or best idea. So if this one isn't the one, if it doesn't work out, and especially when it comes to the local support, whether it be Ramsey County delegation or the St. Paul delegation, being on board with the plan in Arden Hills, sorry, forgot about it. Then where is that next plan? Is it in some other city, or is it a different location? So I think we need to see first what the plan is, get the report that's also going to be coming out, I believe, later on next week.
Right.
To see what the actual assessment is going to be from a state standpoint, and then it gives us a little bit more of a full picture to look at as well. But we're always supportive of trying to keep the Vikings here, even when they're not winning, but we'll look at a creative solution that keeps them here and is tied to the game. That's the most important thing for us.
Okay, Speaker of the House, Kurt Zellers, thank you for your time today. We certainly appreciate it.
Always my pleasure.